you're going to write a script, I would recommend that you write something that doesn't completely suck. Okay? I implore you, I beg of you, when you're writing a script, write something that doesn't fucking suck. All right? You know, if you write something that doesn't suck, it has a better chance of getting optioned or sold or whatever. And most importantly, let's say me and you are friends, all right? And you write this shitty fucking script, and you want me, your friend, to read it. Guess who's the one who's got to suffer? It's me, okay? I have to suffer through that shit. So please, I implore you, if you're gonna write a script, write something fucking good, or at least halfway decent, all right? Welcome to Mikey's Discount Drive, and this is episode 4, and I am Mikey. So yeah, man, I'm pretty psyched. I have a feature indie thriller that's in pre-production right now. I co-wrote it with a writer named Joseph Cahill. He's a good dude, and it's going to be directed by Oswaldo Martinez. He's a very talented director. We start filming in Mexico in January of 2022. But things are moving really fast right now. We still have some more rewrites, and we're in the middle of casting right now. So some more location scouting, though we have most of the locations pretty much set. But yeah, I mean, it's another low-budget indie thriller, so, you know, of course I'm not going to make any fucking money off it. But, you know, it's a good script, and I think it's going to turn out very well. And I can't wait for it to come out. And I can't wait for things to really get going with it. I'll keep everyone posted on that. I do have a few other projects I'm pretty excited about, but, you know, nothing to really report at this moment with those other projects. But I'll keep everyone posted. You know, you can keep up to date with some of that stuff on my Instagram and Twitter pages and my Facebook page. So I'll leave that info in the description below. So I'm excited about today's guest. I have actor Asta Paredes. We're actually friends. We go back 4 years. Her husband was actually the first guest in the first episode. But yeah, she's very talented. She was the star of movies like Sociopatha and the legendary filmmaker Lloyd Kaufman's gloriously demented Return to Nuke Em High Volumes 1 and 2. And she's attached as the lead in a little project that I have in development right now. I'll talk about it more when more shit comes together, but I am excited about it, and I'm really happy that she is attached to the project. She's fucking awesome. So, you know, don't fucking turn this shit off yet. Stick around for the interview. Enjoy the show.
Roger!
Happy New Year's, you freaking sloggers.
We need to break this thing.
I
Roger!
What's the quarrel?
That woman put a curse on you.
A curse? But why?
Dude, you were being so handsy last night. I warned you like 15 times.
At one point, you yelled out, "Papa's shopping for yams" to the whole bar.
I'm starting to think you're hiding something. You don't have a girlfriend, right?
No, I don't have a girlfriend.
Then what's the problem?
I'm just glad I didn't scare you away. I don't frighten easily. Yeah, I get that about you. That you're
knife on the bookshelf over there. You can run it over my body.
Are you sure? I trust you.
Oh my God, what did you do to her?
We're gonna be together forever.
I've known you for like 4 years. I've never said your last name before. How do I pronounce it?
Paredes.
Paredes. Okay, that's how it sounded in my head. All right.
Yeah,
good.
I mean that's the Anglo way of saying it. Otherwise, you would say Asta Paredes. But you
I
could just
can't.
say,
I can't do an accent. I think it would be like cultural appropriation if I.
exactly. So I just say Paredes, like Pa Red S.
Paredes.
Yeah.
So, all right. If you've seen the show, you know I do a little intro. It's the one thing I do good.
Cool.
And it makes everyone feel good. I mean, I might start getting like pre-record an intro for myself to open the show from now on because
Yeah, I started doing that.
it makes you reflect on the work you've done.
Yeah.
But all right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So my next guest today, I'm already stuttering. All right. My next guest today is a very talented actor, writer, director. She co-runs a indie production company here in New York called Abandoned House Productions with her lovely husband, who I interviewed in the first episode. She's a star of movies like Sociopatha, which I did see recently. I liked it. I did. It was very dark. And the other girl was good too. Anyway, back to your intro. She's also the star of legendary filmmaker Lloyd Kaufman's Return to Nuke Em High 1 and 2, volumes 1 and 2. She's on the goddamn poster. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I have Asta Paredes.
Hey.
Yeah, I did that good.
Give myself jazz hands. This is like
Nice,
my applause.
Maybe I'll lace the track with like some applause like I did with Clay.
Oh yeah, woo!
It's always fun. So how you doing?
I'm good. It's starting. I mean, the spring is kind of like teasing us. It's thinking about it.
I know it was nice the other day. Now it's back to being cold. I don't care. I'm still wearing shorts. I'm not.
Oh, same. I'm in a tank top. Like I'm ready for hot girl summer or whatever the hell this is supposed to be.
Well, it's like 40 degrees yesterday and raining. I'm at my bodega wearing shorts and like a wife beater tank top.
Yeah, I've been wearing short. It's kind of like I'm trying to will the weather through my wardrobe because now
exactly.
And also like I'm about to be fully vaccinated, so I'm like getting ready to like meet with friends, and so that kind of like giving me a little something to look forward to, and
Nice.
yeah, so it's good.
So, what about work right now? Like, are you starting to get like, you feel like the indie film scene or the film scene in general, or is starting to, crawl its way back in the play here in New York City?
Oh yeah, I actually recently signed with new management and a theatrical rep, and I thought that when I signed with them, it was just going to be kind of this like relaxed transition time where I could just chill and get used to this new, strategy and everything. And it's just been boom, 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 audition, audition, audition. But that's good because that means that the indie world is working, and not just the indie world, but just like the film world in general. But then also like it takes the nerves out of my system, which when like things kind of went dark, there were still auditions. Like I was still auditioning for a lot of commercial work, but it was different because you weren't just auditioning as an actor, you were auditioning as your whole setup. They were like wanting you to film your stuff in your apartment if you booked it.
So
like,
you had to show off your directing skills and your design skills too.
Yeah, and like I have with my commercial agency, normally for an audition, you give like your headshot and resume, or like they submit you with all your info. But because of the pandemic, my agency had us make PDFs, which included like factoids about ourselves, like what our neighborhood looks like, what our apartment looks like, that kind of thing, because that became part of submitting you for work, that they would send you a camera. Yeah. So I had a clay audition me for some stuff, and legitimately one of the first COVID auditions I did was they wanted me to film myself looking outside of my apartment, like drinking a coffee and like missing my friends on my phone and like things like that. So it was like kind of like, I think I'm really lucky as an actor, because with all this stuff, I just kept being forced to keep really professional, because like they just kept sending stuff for me to do, like auditions. And so it was like, oh, well, let's make our apartment nicer because that'll help my auditions chances. Like,
Well, it's good. That's actually a good thing. It makes you keep your shit in order.
Exactly.
If like I tried doing something like that, I'd fail terribly because my apartment does not look good.
You've got the cool posters, including one of my favorite movies, Suicide Theory.
Oh, wow. It's funny you say that because I actually wrote that movie. Really,
Did you?
yeah, I swear.
I love that movie.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's been my clutch recommendation to people. Like, if I'm like, oh, you've seen everything, huh? Have you seen Suicide Theory?
Nice. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But this isn't about me. I can talk about myself all day, but let's talk about you a little bit. So like I did with the first two episodes, I kind of did like a Mark Maron kind of thing, where it's just free flow, just talking like, things I'm legitimately curious about. So where did you grow up? Was it Washington? I do know a little, but no.
No. My parents live in Washington State now. They retired there. So I was born in Beaumont, Texas.
Okay.
And then my first years of life I spent in Haarlem in the Netherlands, and in Oviedo in Spain, which is in northern Spain. So basically I spent the first few years in Europe, to the point where even though I don't remember any of it, my first language was Dutch. Like
Really?
I have all these childhood videos of me speaking fluent Dutch, and it's really like bizarre because I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm saying. But I grew up there. So that's kind of like a weird thing about me. And then I moved back to Texas when I was like kindergarten, first grade age. Some European stuff, they start you a little bit earlier, so it's kind of hard for me to figure out what the equivalent is. But and then when I came here, I was living in Texas in this place called the Woodlands, which is kind of like Stepford, like in Stepford Wives. It's like a bubble community of like people who just seem like a bunch of robots. Like they're just very perfect. So if you're not just like them, like they immediately bully you and like
whispering amongst each other.
Yeah, so I was bullied a lot when I was growing up, especially because my name was different and I just looked different. My parents are both from Ecuador, and I just like something about me, so I just like embraced it and was just weird. So and I was just like this weird kid, and then I was also in, I don't know if you had this when you grew up, but I was in this GT program, like Gifted and Talented.
No, I definitely didn't. That definitely wasn't me.
So besides like feeling like an outsider for other reasons, like I was also like a child genius. So I was in these like Gifted and Talented courses, which are really just kind of ego stroking and prevent you from having the proper social skills as an adult.
See, for me, like when we had the gifted classes, it wasn't for the gifted and talented. It was for, it was for the kids who were, And I was actually considered for that.
No.
Because my my attention span isn't that. Unless I cared about something, never really thought,
Yeah.
never really
Well,
cared about anything. So
that was kind of like in my classes because like everyone was like, I would say pretentious and like annoyingly smart, but we were all very socially awkward. And then I think in like junior high, they just like didn't have those classes anymore. So you just like integrated with normal people.
kind of thrown into regular society with
Yeah, and I remember it was so jarring for me. I was bullied so much that I was forced into like, it was kind of like a mean girl situation.
oh,
I was like forced into this peer mediation thing where like the girls like gaslit me in front of the counselor and said that I was imagining all the things that they did to me, and it was really
it's terrible. I had
Yeah.
a similar experience too, man. I used to get bullied on the bus, and everyone, like the bus driver, would let it happen, and they call me racist names and like beat me.
Yeah.
What the hell? And none of the teachers cared about it. Nobody cared about it until I started doing something. I started like fighting back, and like, well, this has got to stop. I'm like,
Yeah. I just do, and I still do this to this day, but I just reacted by being weirder than they thought I was, like.
so you embraced it, you owned it, you're like, fuck this, fuck you guys, I'm gonna embrace
Yeah.
it.
I remember that there was this one day, I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but it's just your demeanor, where I was at the slumber party with these girls that were like bullying me.
Yeah.
And they were like, one of the girls was like, the HBIC, the head bitch in charge.
Yeah.
And she was like going around the circle, and we were playing truth or dare, but like in reality, the rules became she was just daring everyone to do humiliating things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's dare.
Yeah. And it felt more like a hazing. But when, she got this one girl to do something to the point where she was crying, and then when it got to me, she was like, she was whispering to the other girls what they were going to make me do. And they were like, Asta, we want you to hump the door.
Oh God.
And this was like, I don't know, 6th, 7th grade. I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
But I just took it as an opportunity to like, and I didn't really know about Buster Keaton, so my credit was I was like Jackie Chan. I was like, I love Jackie Chan.
Physical comedy.
So I was like, I'm just gonna literally just run into the door. Like I just like was like, I'm gonna fucking, frat fall into the door. So I did that. And then I just landed it. Like I just landed and it's like, bloop, and I came up like this and just smiled and looked at everybody. And everybody was laughing except for this girl. Like everyone was like, it was so funny and cute, except for this girl who felt
pissed off that you weren't. Yeah, she was pissed off that you weren't sad because of it.
Yeah, and then it's just like things like that. But I grew up there, and then I finished out high school in Texas, and then I went to college in Minnesota and in London. And then my parents, because I was gone for a couple years, were like, screw this xenophobic bullshit. We're moving to Washington. So they moved up there, and it reminds them a little bit of Quito, where they're from, in Ecuador, very mountainous, that climate.
Yeah, my roommates are from Ecuador, so that's pretty cool.
Well, there you go. So that's where I'm from. But I've lived in New York for 10 plus years now. So it feels the most home to me because it's like I've always traveled. I've always had to be kind of like on my own in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's always felt home to me. The way I moved to New York in like 2006, and like my hometown, I was like kind of an outsider, kind of like a misfit. And what I learned when I moved to New York is that everybody was it was like the land of misfit toys. Everybody was fucking weird. Like people who didn't really fit in their hometowns that much, and they fit in perfectly here. So it felt like home to me, and it still feels like home. I can't wait till it gets back to being what it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But so when did you start acting? When did this become an interest of yours? Why did you move to New York? Why did you decide to come here?
Well, okay, that's like a bunch of different answers there, but
All right.
I started, the honest answer is I started acting when I was really young, not like in plays or anything, but when I look at like my childhood movies, I was like performing constantly. And my dad, because we moved around so much, he would always have dinner parties with people he was either mentoring or people he was trying to get to know in his company.
Yeah.
So I was always the one willing to be the class clown. You know, I was always making jokes, trying to charm people, even if it was like offensive or weird.
Yeah.
I've just always been like that. And I even wrote in one of my mom sent me all of these like projects from when I was like in kindergarten and grade school. And I wrote that my goal was to be a movie star. So I apparently always thought that. It wasn't until I was living in Texas for a while that I started to really want to just do something scientific. So for a while, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And then as I got older and knew that my parents were immigrants, I had this kind of duty that I wanted to be something they could be really proud of. So I decided I really wanted to be a doctor because, well, I want to help people.
Yeah.
So, but then one day I was staying after school with a friend and she was auditioning for a play and she dared me to audition and I got the part. And
How about
I was
that?
like, oh, what? So then I started liking it. And then the drama team, the drama club kind of just became the place, like, you know, the misfit toys. Like it just became the place where I could be weird and like people could like me and treat me right. And I could be creative. And then I started my sophomore year of high school, I was being recruited actively for a theater program. And the guy who was recruiting, his name was Ken Washington. And he, if you look him up, he's been mentoring people for years. He's kind of, we joke that he's the mix of like Yoda and Morgan Freeman. He's like kind of like this mix, and he's a very sweet man, but he's been a huge impact on my life. And he passed away a few years ago. And he was like, you should come join our program. At the very least, like we could get you to an out-of-state college. And if you want to pursue a double degree, you can. So I eventually, in my senior year, decided I'm gonna go do this acting program and I'll do pre-med classes at the same time. And we'll see where it falls. And then my junior year, I studied in London at the Globe Theatre.
Okay.
And my teacher, Glenn McDonald, we would have one-on-one evaluations with our teachers in acting school. And she said, I heard some nonsense that you're actively pursuing becoming a doctor.
Nonsense.
She's like, you can do that at any point in your life. Like, but I'd hate for you to be cutting someone open thinking, man, I wish I had kept acting. Like, so she told me that I should just focus just on acting. And then I did. And then I just felt so good about it. And then I came to New York for multiple reasons. One, because that's like always been, I pictured myself living in New York. Just like I picture myself living in Paris one day, even if it's just for like a year. And I originally came here just because of that. And I had a high school sweetheart here who I wanted to try and make it work.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll try. And I got everything ready to go, came here, found out he was like this cheating asshole. And
That son of a bitch. So it didn't work out?
Oh, no, not at all. But it was funny because right before I came here, I saw a psychic, and she told me that I would go to New York for love, but that I would find love in New York. And I had no idea what that meant. And then I'm like, oh, I found my husband here. And like, not just in a cheesy like romance kind of way, like he's my legitimate partner. You know,
Yeah.
you could say, like, we have all the different layers. Like we are passionate about each other on every level a couple should, but we have the same dreams and the same goals. And then we also see each other's goals. So like he knows what I want to do with my career and vice versa. And it's, you know, sometimes it's tough that we're apart. Like when he proposed to me, a week later, he had to go to London to shoot a movie. So I was like, you proposed to me and then you just like leave.
Yeah.
But like that, we understand that that's how it is.
It's part of the business.
Yeah, but so that's why I came to New York. Was I just like had a gut that I needed to go here. Like I was like, I need to come here, and New York will teach me how to be a person, and then I'll figure out everything else from there. So that's,
well, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That's what that's what the song says, and it's true. I mean, and you know it. Like even when I ran into money issues, like now, for instance, you always find a way to, you know, if you're meant to be here, you're gonna find a way. So
yeah.
Oh, so what was Return to Nuke 'Em High like your first like big, you know, big thing? That's a bit like I know who Lloyd Kaufman is. I knew who he was for a while. I was a big Toxic Avenger fan, and I remember Clay, your husband, auditioned for the short film I did, and it came out okay. But Clay was fantastic in it. But I didn't even really look at his resume. I was just looking at an audition thing, and then one day I looked at his resume. I was like, "Oh shit, you worked with Lloyd Kaufman?" He's like, yeah. Then I met you, and they're like, oh yeah, she's the star of the movie. And I saw the poster. I'm like, what the hell? So it's kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. How did that come about?
So I actually, when I first came here, I had a bit of a whirlwind, because one, just moving into New York, and just getting acclimatized to that. When I got some stuff together, I auditioned for my first film, and it was called something like Not Seattle. I don't know if it ever ended up being made. And I booked it, but then I had a panic attack and like I just ghosted them.
Oh God.
Because I actually technically became homeless on the same day.
What happened?
So I was kicked out of my apartment. It's a long story, but
you don't have to get into it too much.
Yeah,
I know the feeling. I got kicked out too.
And so I was literally like, do I answer this phone call about booking this part, or do I figure out like how to get this guy I just started seeing to help me get my stuff from my apartment, like, you know, like while I'm at work, you know, like it was like, what do I do? And then I auditioned for a second film, which was going to be so cool. It was a horror movie.
Yes.
And they wanted to shoot it in a style that was like, kind of, they pitched it to me that they wanted me to come onto the set, which was going to be this abandoned house upstate, with a co-star that I will develop a backstory with as a sister. And that we will just like, they'll give us prompts, but that they're not going to tell us what's happening. And it's going to be like kind of honestly like on a Blair Witch like very like, so they were like, we're going to actually scare you, but we're not going to tell you. And that's going to be the movie. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. Like I'm an improv person. And then I also was doing a play at the same time. And basically after the last performance of my play, I was supposed to pack up and go upstate. And this is like such a long way of answering your question. But then they called me that night and were like, so your co-star's backing out of the movie. Her sister killed herself.
Oh, Jesus.
And this won't be an easy project to do. We don't know if we can handle it. There was like this whole thing, like everything just shut down. Everyone was just like, we're done.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn. And I submitted myself for I focused on plays. And then I saw this ad in Casting Networks, which is a submission site.
Okay.
And it said, return to the class of Nuke Em High. And then it had like a few roles, and it said Chrissy, attractive, not so innocent, willing to do nudity, like horror comedy. It was like the most simple thing I've ever heard of.
Did it say who was?
Yeah, it said Trauma Studios, it said all that stuff, Trauma Entertainment. But I was struck by it because there were so many pretentious breakdowns where they like over describe the character,
Yeah.
and it gives you nothing to work on or create.
Yeah.
Or like just plain old sexist stuff. And I was just like, no, I mean, I'm comfortable with my body, and this sounds fun. Let's do this. So then I just went down the rabbit hole of just Googling, and I was like, oh, I've seen Class of Nuke 'Em High. I love that movie. I didn't know about Trauma. I didn't know like that whole world. So I started just like researching, and then I saw that Marissa Tomei had like a small little moment in like Toxic Avenger. And my friends in college always joke that I do anything Marissa Tomei does. So I was like, I'm doing the audition. And then for the audition, they asked you to do either a monologue, do like a song, or tell a story. And so when I was in the waiting room, which was at Trauma Entertainment like studios in Queens, I heard a lot of different auditions. And the one right before me, the girl was singing The Little Mermaid, like A Part of Your World.
Yeah.
And it was like so nauseating. And I went in and I had a monologue ready to go. And I last minute was like, can I just tell you guys a story? And they were like, sure. And again, me embracing being weird, I decided to tell them the story of the first time I did acid. And that ended up getting me a call back. And then a callback. And I did like 9 or 10 callbacks over the period of a month and a half. Basically, it was like every week I would get a call, be like, can you come again? Can you visit us again? Can you read this? Can you do that? And I realized that it was kind of a genius way of breaking into the film world, because first of all, they wanted to see if you were actually passionate about this, if you weren't going to flake on them, if you had chemistry, if you were willing to be bold under stress, because you're going to be living in a small space with a bunch of people for a few months, like what they want to see who you are. And the last callback I did, they made us watch this Poultry in Motion, Poultrygeist Behind the Scenes documentary, just to show us like how bad it can be on set.
Yeah.
And I didn't bat an eyelash. I was like, sign me up. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that came about. This was my third film audition, and it was like third time's a charm. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
And was this your first feature film?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And you're the star of it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. Jesus.
Yeah, and it's great, but it also spoiled me, because like after you do something like that at that level and with that kind of just a lot of creative juices flow in and just like boldness, you are spoiled for mainstream Hollywood stuff. And so when I ever auditioned for things that were like what I call prop roles, where it's like the girlfriend, or I just like was like, is she not more than that? Like it was just, I had been spoiled,
What's her backstory?
Yeah, like what's her, like I wanted to be a person. And ironic that an exploitation company film made me feel more empowered than, some of these other things. So it took some getting used to and figuring out how to like give myself that power and not necessarily look down on mainstream, but like figure out like how can I help progress things with my own talent. And so yeah, it was like it was a great experience, and obviously I met the love of my life.
And
So
you got
it
a
was-
lead role by telling a drugstore. It's like the only job where like drug use it will get you will get you the job.
I mean,
Or the
I was
office
like,
job telling people about dropping acid and so I gotta hydrate a little bit. I got my
oh yeah, I'm gonna get hydrated too.
woo.
Yeah.
The key to losing weight right there. I lost like I'm up to like 14 pounds now. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Water's the key.
I'm the opposite. I'm trying to put on weight because I want to do like action.
Well, you
So
and
I'm
Clay are like the best shaped people like ever. I go on your guys. I'll go on Instagram and like, you know how like it automatically goes from story to story, and I gotta see Clay with his fucking shirt off, making me angry. I'm like, come on, man. Like,
he makes me
it is
angry.
it is motivating though. I'm like, all right, well, looks like I got some fucking work to do.
But that's the thing. I've just realized like that I'm trying to make sure I feed my body so that it knows that it's getting energy, that I'm feeding it the right
Absolutely.
stuff.
Well, if you guys for your thing, it's required. Like, I can put on like 300 pounds and no one's gonna give a shit because it, you know, I'm not gonna. Of course, I'm not gonna do a podcast anymore. But
But you know,
one thing I wanted to talk about
yeah.
was one thing that fascinates me about you and your husband is your love for the horror genre. You guys are like ambassadors for. You're like part of the culture, especially here in New York City. I remember we've hung out a few times, and every time we've hung out, it's been like a horror movie. We went to see a screening of a couple horror movies.
Yeah.
And we went. I met you guys at the Brooklyn. Was it the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival or something like that?
Yeah.
And everyone, hey, they're like, hey, Clay, hey. I'm like, how the fuck do all these horror movie people know you guys? And so how like what? First off, where does your interest in horror come from? Like, when did? Of course, Clay told me it came when he was younger, just watching horror movies. Like, how did that come about? Like, I've dated a lot of people. They're like, I can't watch horror movies, and it's like, all right, well, we can't date anymore because that's what the fuck I watch. Like, you know, how did that come about?
Yeah. Well,
like becoming part of the culture.
I say it's a threefold thing for me. First of all, my parents and my brother are all born in the first half of the year.
Okay.
So I've got 2 Aries and a Taurus.
Okay.
And I was born in November. I'm a Scorpio. So I've always been like the literal black sheep of the family. Like I just like loved weird things. And for me, I've realized that my personal relationship to horror and my understanding of why people love horror on a base level is your comfort with your own mortality and your, to be honest, like your vitality, your sexuality, like your just like ability to like want to feel things and the rush of that. And so when people say they don't want to watch a scary movie, it's because they don't want to be made to feel something. And horror is something that makes you feel something. Whereas like comedy, just pure comedy without like a genre on top of it, it's great in the sense that we find things funny when we recognize it or observe it also. So it's like, oh, that's funny because like that happens to me too, or that is a truth about life. But people can handle that kind of feeling without it creating a visceral reaction. But horror asks you, it forces you to be in the driver's seat, but without having control of the car. And that's why I like it. I like that horror gives me like kind of a experience into my own mortality. And then when it's over, I appreciate life that much more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come from it. So, and I've always just loved weird things. So that's why, and I've spent a good portion of my life because of like just being awkward growing up and then having different medical conditions. I've watched so many movies. I watched so much, like,
Yeah.
and the stuff that I see the most interesting characters, especially for women, is genre.
Yeah.
You know? So, and when you do genre for as a woman, like just auditioning or like the stuff that like I'm developing, nobody questions a woman making decisions for herself because she needs to survive.
Yeah.
But in other movies, they're like, would she do that or would she check with her husband first? I'm like, what?
What?
You know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's part of why, and I love that you can also tell things in a surreal way with horror. You can use weird images you have in your brain and then trick people into thinking about things about their life by using a metaphor. Like there's nothing like it.
Ah, that was a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be. Like, very well said. Like, I'm like the least eloquent person. So, somebody asked me a question like why I love horror movies so much. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, they're fun. I just like watching it. But yeah, everything you said there, it's pretty much exactly why I think most people like horror movies. Of course, they don't think about it that deeply. You're a lot more emotionally intelligent than a lot of the most people. You and Clay. So like you and Clay, that's a big connection you guys have. You guys share that, like on Halloween, you guys get all dressed up and what was it? I forget what the one costume you guys wore. You were dressed as, was it John Carpenter? And it was so obscure. But like the horror movie community fucking loves that. It loves that shit. So, and you guys are big Joe Bob fans like me. I've been a fan of his since the '90s, and yeah, I remember I was watching a movie the other night, and I put it on Facebook, and Clay's like, "You're missing Joe Bob." I'm like, "Oh shit!" So I put on my Shutter.
Yeah, Monster Vision was where it was at for me. That was a big gateway into the weird horror stuff for me.
Oh, even before Monster Vision,
Yeah.
he did like I never heard people talk about horror movies before. I remember I saw Needful Things, the Stephen King movie. It's pretty bad, but when I was a kid, I thought it was awesome. I was like, wow, all these. Then they showed it on Joe Bob's thing, and he was like describing everything wrong with it. And I was like, oh, I never saw it that way. You know, I was like 13 years old, and after he like after he described it, I watched the movie again. I was like, this movie kind of sucked. So it did kind of ruin the movie for me. But I've been a big fan of his for a very long time.
Yeah.
So what's coming up for you? What kind of projects we got going? I know one in particular that is kind of in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Working on it for a while, but things are starting to look up a little bit.
Yeah,
Outside of that, we'll get to that. But what other things do you got going on right now?
well, I am writing a couple screenplays. One,
Plays?
yeah,
Okay.
no, like for the screen.
Okay, screenplay.
Screenplays. I am co-writing one of them, and I'm pretty excited about it. We're trying to package it even before the script is finished because it's something that we think would definitely like be greenlit. Kind of a movie about relationships and addiction and nature and like just I don't even want to. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And then I have a feature that I have pretty much. I would say it's pretty much done. I'm just like writing the physical screenplay because it's a found footage concept.
Yeah.
And it's basically centered around cultural identity and like why we keep the secrets that we do, and it's based on some stuff that's supernatural that's happened in my family. So it was like it's been kind of great because I think what's great about being an actor but also being a creator is when you get to use your creations as an excuse to explore something about yourself or your family's history. So it's like easier to ask.
Well, you're killing two birds with one stone too. You're
Yeah.
feeding this curiosity you have about this thing that really happened.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're creating entertainment and
Exactly. And it's like working through things. Like my mom, like, she had a pretty interesting time when she was adjusting here in the States.
Yeah.
Especially because I present very as the term being like white passing, which is ridiculous because in any other country that they would just call me white.
Yeah.
But in this country in particular, we like to give anybody any reason to feel like an other, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so basically I'm getting to explore and help my mom by talking to her and asking questions about her life. And then I actually just had a meeting and I'm going to be producing a horror short.
Nice.
With a very exciting young female filmmaker. And yeah, I'm really excited. It's a body horror and I love body horror. It's my favorite, my favorite thing, especially because women, we get it so much more. Like we go through it every month at least. It's like,
yeah, I've never been through any uncomfortable physical outside of just gaining weight and losing weight.
yeah.
You know, I'm not even going to pretend to relate to what ladies go through.
Yeah, so
you've done a lot for like women in film and in art in general. Like, how has it changed over the years? Like, say when you like first started trying to break into the industry, how do you feel about direction things are heading with women getting more, you know, getting less like, you know, typical acting work, you know, like stereotypical girl just walks around being eye candy and all that stuff.
yeah.
And like what women getting into like producing films and in positions of power, like how do you feel that has progressed since you first started this whole thing?
Well, I would say one, I feel very lucky that my first film experience was with Trauma because I didn't even consider being a producer or director before that. It wasn't until one night I had a long scene and Lloyd drove me home from set and he said that the way I was talking respectfully with some of the crew that I should consider directing, that I have a very good understanding about just getting things done in a nice handling kind of way.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, oh, okay. And my first time I ever directed was a few years ago. I wrote and directed The Slightest Touch, which I actually did as a suggestion from a therapist a long time ago, which was this conceit of psychodrama, which is how do you move past something that's mentally blocking you, is you get others to perform it for you. So I wrote a piece about my experience with PTSD, kind of in a metaphoric way. And I had just seen so many things that discussed, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder as a military veteran exclusive issue. And it's funny you say it helped so much women in film because when I sought comfort in the industry from women in film, nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody wanted to do anything about PTSD. Nobody wanted to help me. I had to basically, you know, force my way onto the scene, so to speak. And as my film had finished wrapping, then the Weinstein stuff came out and all this stuff, and suddenly everybody wanted to do something about PTSD or sexual assault. And my thing was that PTSD, in regards to recovery from sexual assault, it doesn't just go away. Like
No,
things will, I hate to use the word because it's become like this propaganda word, but like things will trigger you. Like you might just be in the middle of your day and something just hits you off, whether it's a smell or a sound or whatever, and you just suddenly it's like you're just drowning and you just can't deal with it and you can't breathe. And so I had my film just kind of explore, what if like the literal apparition of your rapist is following you while you're just trying to deal with your day. And I could have probably bumped up and made it more genre-y and it could have done better, but I'm so proud of it because after I finished doing that film, I felt like this burden had lifted off my shoulders. Like I had spoken my truth, even if it was not so specific, like people don't know exactly what I went through. I still had lifted this stigma that I've placed on myself. And I've just noticed that people in the industry are so much more willing to speak and hear from women that are candid. And that now, especially in the past year or two, when my race or my ethnicity rather is brought into play, it's not brought into play as an opportunity to tokenize me. It's brought in as an opportunity to, what's your opinion on this? What's your perspective on this? And I think that that's incredibly empowering, because a lot of people who fall into different ethnic stereotypes in the acting side of things, sometimes we feel the pressure to play up our stereotypes or play up certain things in order to book work. And I had booked some stuff where on set, I was given tons of bronzer. My eyebrows were darkened.
Oh God.
Like they put like stuff and they talked to me like shit. And I think it was like 3 months later, I lightened my hair. And I like was like, I'm not going through that again. But the fact is that now I think people they're being asked their specific opinion on things. Like we have a lot of people, and I'm sure you can relate, who are the first generation, you know, or they're the first, they're a mix of something. And I both relate to Meg Ryan and J-Lo, you know, like why do I have to choose, you know? So I have
exactly.
So I think as women, as anything, I think everybody's opinions, there is a space for you now. There is a place for you. There is someone who will fund you now that a year or two ago might have said, I don't know if the optics on that are good, or I don't know if the market for that is as big as you think it is. Now there's proof. Now a Black-led film is proven to make money. You know, like a women-led film in a science fiction is proven to make money. Like, so when I make pitch decks, it's easier to prove those things, you know, which is so great. I think that that's exciting. And I think that the veil has been lifted, and, you know, people like myself who really value integrity in this industry, which really mostly wants you to compromise yourself.
Yeah.
I find it so much easier to be myself for the first time in my life. Like I don't have to push away advances from a producer. I don't have to worry about being
Thank God.
Yeah, like I don't have to worry about being blacklisted for speaking my mind. Like it's a wonderful, and then I can also make my own things happen, which is very exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I kind of interrupted my own question by asking you that question. What other stuff do you have going on? I know you're producing this horror movie, this body horror. It sounds awesome. It sounds like my kind of thing. What other projects do we have in the pipeline?
Well, in the pipeline, I have a romantic drama called Shadow Boxes.
Yes.
And we're getting closer and closer to having that. It's been on and off and on and off and on because of the different COVID restrictions.
Yeah, I remember you guys were supposed to shoot like.
We're supposed to shoot in October. Yeah, and it's just like it's been crazy. And then, you know, I've signed with new management, so I'm like kind of like in the mix for some things I can't really talk about.
Of course.
And then, you know, as far as stuff that I am, you know, co-developing with Clay, like, you know, They Never Left is something that we are.
Oh yeah, I heard about that project. Yeah.
Yeah, so you worked on the short with Clay and then developed it into a feature, and then I just happened to come to the reading and you were like, you want to read the girl parts? And I was like, sure. And then
the girl part.
And then it turned out that the girl part.
I'm like, hey, you're a girl. You want to read this girl part? Oh yeah, you read.
Then you saw.
Oh, well, I was just doing a joke because like Clay told me about all this stuff you did, and I was like, she's not gonna want to do it, like in my head. So you read it. I was just joked. I was like, you should play the part. Then I was talking to Clay about people who could play the role, and he's like, well, what about Asta? I was like, I was joking. Does she want to? And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, well that settles that then. And like, I don't have to look anymore.
Yeah, and it's a really great script. I mean, I've loved reading everything of yours that I've had an opportunity to read for or,
thank you
or watch, because I like the frankness of it, and I like the playback. I like that everything pays off.
Yeah.
And And also I just, I like messy characters. And that's the other thing is like when I'm looking, if I'm an opportunity to be courted for a role or consider or have a role pitched to me, I prefer characters that aren't perfect or aren't pretending to be perfect at the very least. Like I think that true equality in the industry is allowing women to not be on a pedestal, allow them to be bitches and assholes and jerk, like, because that's real and that's gritty. And I won't have to wear, I won't have to like contour my face and wear tons of makeup and Spanx and stuff. I can just breathe. So.
Yeah. Well, I think I did like rewrites after that, and I kind of like I like writing when I like for a character when I know who's gonna play it.
Yeah.
So did a few rewrites after that, after I knew that you wanted to play the role. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward. I think it's gonna be a great movie.
Yeah, and it's again like the thing I'm writing. I'm kind of getting some inspiration from They Never Left, because just the idea of using genre as a way to tackle addiction and how it affects you and the people that are around you.
Yeah.
And my personal connection to They Never Left. Like I've been in relationships with people who who are alcoholic, who have pushed me to the brink, and it's heart-wrenching because everybody can relate to that. So,
but at the same time, I tried keeping some humor in there. It's not like a Buster gut laughing humor, but like I don't know. It's because there are funny moments. You go through shit with somebody, even bad relationships. There's like things you look back at and like, it's pretty funny. That I mean, it's not all gloom and doom. Every single moment isn't just you shaking in the corner. So
but also like I'm the kind of person that when I look back on some of the darkest moments of my life, I laugh my ass off. And sometimes I forget that when I'm telling people the stories, that they're like listening to it and they're like, that sounds horrible. And I'm like, yeah, it's hilarious. Like,
well, it gives you a story. Like I love telling like stories about terrible shit that happened.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I can, it's been long enough. Like I can talk about it.
Exactly. And I honestly, I love absurd humor because you need levity. I used to have a roommate that she liked watching scary movies, but during the parts that were like legitimately scary, she would back off of it and just laugh uncontrollably. So I
know people like that.
We would be like watching it be so scary, and she would just be like, what is that? Like, what is that?
That does sound a little psychotic. I'm not gonna lie. If I was sitting in a movie theater and I heard someone laugh and I'd like sitting behind me, I'd be like, oh God, I gotta move my seat. I'm not trying to get murdered in here. In the middle of the theater. That actually happened to me when I was watching Joker. Like I already saw it a couple times in theaters, but it was a packed theater, and like it was the interview scene with Robert De Niro and Joaquin Phoenix, and this guy behind me is just laughing his ass off, like building up to it. And it's a very tense scene, and like because of what happened with the in Colorado years back with there was security at the theater, and there's just like feeling hanging over you where you're like, oh shit, like this kind of feels dangerous, seeing this movie. And this guy's laughing, and I'm just like I'm more afraid that he's gonna pull out a gun and blow the back of my head off than I am of the movie.
Yeah, that something like that happened to Clay and I. We went to go see a movie that a friend of ours was in at a theater, and it only had 2 screenings, so we saw like a 10 p.m. screening, and we got in the theater and we were the only 2 people, and we were like, sweet, all these people, and then like the lights go down and the trailers start, and then one man enters and he goes to the way back row, and we just know that he's back there, and we're just like, and anytime anything was happening, I would just be like, is he gonna kill us? Like what? Like this is just so, it's like it's 11 at night.
I saw this one movie when I lived in Astoria. I went to the Astoria Kaufman Theater.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible horror movie. It was with Jennifer Lawrence, and it was like the house at the end of the street or some shit like that.
Last house on the left.
No, it wasn't that one. I liked the Last House on the Left. It was a very generic. It was like the house at the end of the street or something. it was like a generic. I was like, oh, they're just copying off Last House on the Left, but it had Jennifer Lawrence in it, and I'm just sitting in the theater by myself, and I noticed there's a guy sitting in the very back. They're the only ones in the theater, and like every time I kept looking back, he kept like switching seats. Nothing was like it was kind of getting closer. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Luckily, the movie was so terrible that I just walked out. Like 40. Plus, I was a little scared too. I wasn't trying to die in a movie theater.
I actually, even though I've had a lot of creepy things happen to me in movie theaters, I'm so looking forward to being in one again. I don't know if you
I can't wait.
like
Yeah, hopefully when things open back up, like we can meet up, check out a couple movies, do some film fests. It's been so long. One thing about this pandemic is, as you guys know, I love drinking a little bit. I think the last time we hung out, I was fucking shit faced. I think I blacked out. I had to call Clay the next day. I was like, was I okay? Like, no, you're just really happy. I was like, oh, thank God. But man, it's been a long time since I've gone out and just had a drink and enjoyed myself with a friend. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys again soon. And do you have any plugs, like Instagram that you want to plug? And I'm going to put it in the description and on the screen here.
Yeah, I have an Instagram for me, Asta Paredes, AstaParedes. I also will soon probably reboot my talk show. It's called Chatting with Asta.
Chatting with Asta. I was on it last time.
Yeah. I started chatting with Asta because I just noticed that a lot of my friends who were basically in a position that they're about to have their films at festivals or getting ready to plug their work or whatever, their whole ability to spotlight was gone. So I wanted to give them a platform.
Well, you had like heavy hitters on your show. Like Host was probably the best found footage horror film I've seen in years, and you had the whole cast. And they were filming from the locations where they should. I guess it was their bedrooms or whatever, or wherever.
Yeah, and I had Jed Shepard, the producer.
Yes, you had he was the director or writer.
He's the producer, and he was telling me about it before we did our interview, and I had to keep it a secret for like a month and a half or 2 months. And he's actually plugging Jed. He's doing Ghosts, which is like a real-time horror with the girls from Host as a video game. So you can actually buy this video game and you interact as like a producer on this Ghost Hunters show.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like your decisions could determine whether or not they die. So that's really cool. They have a Kickstarter, which you should check it out. But yeah, and then I also run Duende Darling, which I occasionally post self-care related blogs. And and then I have a website and IMDb, look me up.
All right. I'm gonna post I'm gonna put all that in the description under the where the video is. It's in between where the video is and where the comments are.
Yeah, and
I'm not very computer savvy, so
and be sure to check out any of the Chatting with Asta episodes. You can listen to them as a podcast or watch the YouTube interviews, including you, Michael, which is one of the.
I'm on the episode. I don't know how
one of the popular ones because people love to hear from screenwriters. I mean, I feel like.
Do they? I think screenwriters are the most boring people in the world, which is why I added. Like, I am gonna have a couple friends on who are screenwriters who are not boring. They're but like generally like I was at a Starbucks one time just editing something real quick. So, oh, you write scripts? I do too. And it's just like, I'm like, yeah.
Well, I think it's great to talk to people that aren't as far as my show went, I like to talk to people who aren't normally used to talking about their work because, and honestly, I think this has happened with almost all my guests. I can be proud to say that almost all my guests, a week or two or less after I talk with them, they'll be like, so I feel more aligned with the purpose of why I'm doing what I'm doing because I finally got to speak it out loud. Format. And I think that especially with the close down, lockdown of everything, we get so stuck in our heads and it's so important to speak truth to power and just say what you're thinking, what you want out of life and just put it out there because it just kind of prevents you from thinking it's impossible.
Well, when you had me on and we were like 4 months deep into the pandemic and I think you were the first person I actually talked to, outside my room, my roommates don't speak English, so it's very, it's very hard to have like a deep conversation. But yeah, that was the first time, and like felt like a weight was lifted. I was like, I was nervous at the same time. I was like, do I still like know how to talk to people?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. I'm gonna put a link to the. I am a big fan of the show too.
Thank you.
There's a lot of interesting people on there, So yeah, Asta, it was great having you on the show on this turd of a podcast that you gave credibility to today. Thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll talk soon. We'll have you on again sometime.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.